Definitely not exhaustive list of the known lies of freshman Republican Congressman George Santos of New York. You're probably familiar with some of the greatest hits by now, the volleyball star and Wall Street fortune and all that stuff, right? But here's something you have not heard before. Did you know that Congressman George Santos also claims he was the target of an assassination attempt, which required him being put under official police protection? That is what George Santos claimed last month in an interview with a Brazilian podcast. The podcast is called Radio Novelo Apresenta. Forgive my pronunciation. Radio Novelo Apresenta. They shared this video from the interview exclusively with us. So you won't see this anywhere else, but I want you to see it. In this interview, then Congressman-elect George Santos is speaking with the hosts in Portuguese. So we have subtitled it. He starts off talking about an alleged act of vandalism, which he says was targeted at him simply because he's a Republican. But then in the midst of that, he says, oh, also someone tried to murder him.
Em janeiro de 2021, a minha casa sofreu vandalismo. Meu marido e eu, a gente tinha ido para uma festa de fim de ano, em 2020, na Flórida. Vou para uma festa de avião com meu marido, a gente volta à nossa casa, foi vandalizada porque a gente estava numa festa republicana na Flórida, em dezembro de 2020. Então, é aquilo. Eu já sofri vandalismo, a gente já sofreu atentado de vida, atentado de assassinato, carta ameaçadora, ter que ter polícia, escolta de polícia parada na frente da nossa casa.
We have already suffered an attempt on my life, an assassination attempt. There was an assassination attempt, really. Then Congressman-elect George Santos did not elaborate on his claim in the interview. We have tonight reached out to Congressman Santos's office to get more information about him saying that he was the victim of an attempted murder, and getting New York police protection at his home as a result. There ought to be a record of that sort of thing if it happened. We've inquired about this claim from him. We have not heard back. We do live in hope. Mr. Santos did offer more detail about a different act of violence he says was committed against him. In this interview with the same Brazilian podcast, he said he was the victim of a very, very, very brazen mugging in the middle of the day, in the middle of New York, one of New York City's busiest thoroughfares.
No verão de 2021, no meio da Quinta Avenida, com a 55, eu fui assaltado por dois homens. Antes que qualquer pergunte, não foram negros, eram brancos, inclusive, mas eles me assaltaram, levaram a minha pasta, levaram o meu sapato e meu relógio. E isso foi na luz do dia. Eram 3 e pouca da tarde, eu estava saindo do meu escritório, indo para a garagem, pegar meu carro, e eu fui assaltado. A minha casa foi violada,
Eles arrancaram seu sapato em plena Quinta Avenida?
Sim, em plena Quinta Avenida. E o pior de tudo não foi isso, ninguém fez nada. Ninguém fez nada. O medo é real, é surreal que a gente vive aqui.
It is surreal what we live through here. Yes, surreal is one word for it. I love that the podcast host interrupts him there. Santos says, it was 3 p.m. I was leaving my office, going to the garage, getting my car, and I was mugged. They robbed me, took my briefcase, took my shoes and my watch. The host then interrupts him and says, they stole your shoes in the middle of Fifth Avenue? Really? The podcast hosts actually say they later asked George Santos for the police report for his mugging on the corner of Fifth Avenue and 55th Street at 3 p.m. in the middle of the day when they took, among other things, his shoes. But they say they never heard back from him when they asked for the police report. We have also asked Congressman Santos's office for that police report. We will let you know if we hear anything. We've also put in a records request with the NYPD for any police report that matches what Mr. Santos described. We live in hope. But perhaps the most magnificent moment of this interview comes when Congressman Santos tries to explain to these podcast hosts why it is that he personally takes such a hard line toward undocumented immigrants when he himself comes from a family of immigrants. Watch.
Por isso que eu sou assiduamente crítico de pessoas que querem iniciar o seu sonho americano e aquela jornada e querem ensinar ela de forma errônea. Eu acho assim, os Estados Unidos foi criado em imigração. foi criado em imigração, em diversidade. Eu incentivo extremamente as pessoas que querem vir para cá a fazer, mas eu também incentivo que isso seja feito de forma correta. Porque eu acho assim, imagina você iniciar um relacionamento com uma mentira, ou com fazendo uma coisa errada, né? Então eu acho que não é beneficente nem para mim, nem para você, né, nesse relacionamento. Então eu também
I'm assiduously critical of people who want to start their American dream the wrong way. Imagine starting a relationship with a lie. Imagine starting a relationship with a lie. Imagine how awful that would be. Because, of course, he would never lie. Your Republican Congress at work, Republican Congressman George Santos. We will be right back.